Henry Thompson, a 75-year-old man with a lifetime of grit and determination, had always harbored a passion for automobiles. Not just any cars, but the kind that turned heads, sleek, powerful machines that embodied elegance and success. Born in a modest rural town, Henry had spent his youth toiling at odd jobs, from washing dishes to delivering newspapers, just to keep food on the table. Over the years, through sheer perseverance, he had built a thriving business empire, retiring with the kind of wealth that allowed him to dream big. Yet one dream remained unfulfilled: owning a luxurious car that reflected the triumphs of his long, hard-fought life. On a radiant summer morning, with sunlight streaming through his bedroom window, Henry decided the time had come to make that dream a reality. He dressed meticulously, choosing a tailored charcoal suit, a crisp white shirt, and polished leather shoes. His silver hair, neatly combed, and his wire-rimmed glasses gave him an air of quiet sophistication. Today, he would visit Elite Motors, the city's most renowned car dealership, a place known for its collection of high-end vehicles. For years, Henry had admired their cars from afar, but he had never set foot inside. Now, with a spring in his step and a heart full of anticipation, he was ready to change that. The dealership was a marvel of modern design, its glass facade gleaming under the morning sun. Inside, the showroom was a spectacle of automotive artistry. Rows of pristine cars sparkled under bright lights, their curves and chrome accents catching the eye. The air carried the distinct scent of new leather and fresh paint, a fragrance that stirred Henry's lifelong love for cars. He could already imagine himself behind the wheel of a sleek, crimson convertible, the engine purring as he cruised down open roads. But as he stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The staff, clustered behind a sleek counter, barely acknowledged his presence. Salespeople lounged in small groups, engrossed in their phones or casual conversations. No one offered a greeting or a smile. It was as if Henry, despite his polished appearance, was invisible. At first, Henry brushed it off. He wasn't here to demand attention. He was here to savor the moment. He wandered through the showroom, pausing to admire a ruby-red sports car that seemed to glow under the lights. Its sleek lines and glossy finish called to him, sparking visions of wind-in-the-hair drives through the countryside. He ran a hand lightly over the hood, picturing the freedom it promised. After a few minutes, a young salesman finally approached. His name tag read Ethan, and his expression was one of thinly veiled disinterest. "Can I help you, sir?" Ethan asked, his tone clipped, his eyes scanning Henry's gray hair and slightly worn suit jacket. Henry smiled warmly, undeterred. "Just looking for. I've always wanted a car like this one." Ethan's eyebrow arched, his skepticism obvious. "Right. Well, just so you know, these cars aren't exactly for everyone." His words carried a subtle sting, implying Henry didn't belong in a place like this. Henry's smile faltered, but he refused to let the comment shake him. He had faced judgment before, decades of it, in fact. Growing up in a small town where opportunities were scarce, he had endured dismissive looks and low expectations. Yet he had risen above it all, building a life of success through determination. He nodded politely and turned back to the car, unwilling to engage in a confrontation. Moments later, Ethan returned with a man who introduced himself as Mr. Grayson, the showroom manager. Grayson was tall, impeccably dressed, and carried an air of authority. Without so much as a handshake, he spoke curtly. "Sir, I'm afraid we can't have people browsing without serious intent to buy. This is a high-end establishment, not a museum." Henry felt a pang of disbelief. The words were not just rude, they were a slap in the face. He had come here with every intention of purchasing a car, yet he was being treated like an intruder. His heart ached not just for himself, but for the countless others who might have faced similar treatment. "I'm sorry if I've caused any trouble," he said, his voice steady despite the hurt. "I'll see myself out." With his head held high, Henry walked back to his car, parked just outside the showroom. As he settled into the driver's seat, his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. The sting of rejection lingered, mingling with memories of past prejudices. Growing up, Henry had faced discrimination because of his race, his modest background, and his lack of connections. People had doubted his ability to succeed, but he had proven them wrong time and again. He had built a business from nothing, raised a family, and earned a reputation as a man of integrity. Yet here, in this moment, he was reminded that some people still judged others by appearances alone. The sun dipped low, casting an orange glow across the city. Henry took a deep breath, calming the frustration that threatened to boil over. He wasn't a man to dwell on anger. It was a waste of energy, and he had learned long ago to channel his emotions into action. This incident wasn't just about a car. It was about dignity, respect, and the right to be treated as an equal. Henry wasn't going to let this moment define him. Instead, he would turn it into an opportunity. As he drove home, an idea began to take shape. What if he didn't just walk away? What if he could take control of the situation in a way that would leave a lasting impact? He wasn't just a customer. He was a businessman with resources, experience, and a vision. The thought of owning the showroom itself sparked in his mind. It was a bold move, but Henry had never shied away from bold moves. By the time he pulled into his driveway, his plan was clear. He would return to Elite Motors, not as a customer, but as its owner. The next morning, Henry sat at his desk, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. He dialed his lawyer, Margaret, a trusted confidant who had guided him through countless business deals. "Margaret," he said, his voice calm but resolute, "I want to buy a car dealership. Elite Motors, to be exact." Margaret paused, surprised by the suddenness of the request. "That's a big move, Henry. Are you sure about this?" "I've never been more sure," he replied. He recounted the events at the showroom, his frustration tempered by determination. "This isn't just about the car. It's about changing how things are done. I want to make that place a beacon of respect and fairness." Margaret listened intently, her legal mind already working through the logistics. "It won't be simple," she cautioned. "A dealership like that has a parent company, and they'll want to know you're serious. But if anyone can pull this off, it's you." Henry smiled. "Let's get to work." Over the next few days, Henry threw himself into the process. He drafted a formal email to the parent company of Elite Motors, carefully choosing his words. He didn't mention the rudeness he had experienced. Anger wouldn't serve his purpose. Instead, he presented himself as a seasoned businessman with a vision for the dealership's future. He outlined his interest in acquiring the showroom, emphasizing his financial capability and his desire to elevate the business. After reviewing the email with Margaret, he hit send and waited. The response came faster than he expected. The parent company's CEO, Miss Laura Bennett, expressed interest in his proposal and invited him to a meeting at their corporate headquarters. Henry could sense a hint of skepticism in her carefully worded reply. A 75-year-old man wanting to buy a high-end car dealership wasn't a typical request. But Henry was used to being underestimated. Henry began the meeting with small talk, disarming the room with his warmth and charm. Then he transitioned to his vision. "I've spent my life building businesses," he said, his voice steady and commanding. "I started with nothing, no connections, no wealth, just a belief that hard work and integrity could take me anywhere. I see potential in Elite Motors, not just to sell cars, but to create a place where every customer feels valued. I want to build a business that's about people, not just profits." He spoke of his early days, scraping by in a small office, working late nights to secure his first clients. He shared stories of overcoming prejudice, of proving doubters wrong through persistence. He didn't boast, he simply laid out his philosophy: treat people with respect, and success will follow. The executives listened, their initial skepticism giving way to intrigue. By the time Henry finished, the room was silent, the air charged with possibility. Miss Bennet leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. "Mr. Thompson, your vision is compelling, but this is a significant investment. What makes you think you can turn this dealership around?" Henry met her gaze. "I've done it before. I know what it takes to build something meaningful. This isn't about changing the cars you sell. It's about changing how you sell them. I want Elite Motors to be a place where everyone feels welcome, from first-time buyers to retirees like me." The meeting stretched on, with questions about finances, logistics, and long-term plans. Henry answered each one with confidence, his decades of experience shining through. By the end, the executives were convinced. A week later, Henry received the call he had been waiting for. His offer had been accepted. Elite Motors was his. The news hit him like a wave of exhilaration. Sitting in his study, he stared at the signed contract, a smile spreading across his face. He had done it. The showroom that had dismissed him was now under his control. But this was only the beginning. Owning the dealership was one thing. Transforming it was another. Henry decided to keep his ownership a secret from the staff at first. He wanted to observe them, to understand the culture he was stepping into. The next morning, he arrived at Elite Motors just as the showroom opened. The familiar scent of leather and polish greeted him. But this time, he felt a sense of ownership. The cars, the lights, the sleek design, it all belonged to him now. As the staff trickled in, Henry stood near the crimson sports car that had first caught his eye. He watched as salespeople went about their routines, unaware of the seismic shift that had occurred. When Ethan, the young salesman who had been so dismissive, spotted him, his expression shifted from indifference to confusion. Can I help you, sir?" Ethan asked, his tone cautious. Henry smiled, savoring the moment. "Yes, I believe you can. I'm Henry Thompson, the new owner of this showroom." Ethan's jaw dropped, his eyes wide with shock. You're the owner?" "That's right," Henry said calmly. "I've purchased Elite Motors, and I'll be overseeing operations from now on." The news spread like wildfire. Staff members whispered to one another, their faces a mix of surprise and uncertainty. Henry made his way to the manager's office, where Mr. Grayson awaited. The manager's expression was one of barely concealed panic. "Mr. Thompson," Grayson said, standing quickly, "I wasn't expecting you today." Henry extended a hand. "I wanted to meet everyone in person. This showroom has tremendous potential, but it needs a new direction. I'm here to make that happen." Grayson nodded, clearly unsure how to respond. Henry continued, "I want to create a place where every customer feels respected, no matter who they are. That starts with us, how we treat people, how we work together. I'm counting on you and the team to make that vision a reality." The rest of the day was a whirlwind. Henry met with each staff member, listening to their concerns and sharing his goals. He emphasized respect, inclusion, and exceptional customer service. Some employees seemed skeptical, accustomed to the old ways of high-pressure sales. Others, however, were intrigued, eager to be part of something different. By the end of the day, Henry felt a spark of optimism. The road ahead would be challenging, but he could already sense the potential for change. He addressed the staff one last time before leaving. "Thank you for your time today," he said, his voice warm but firm. "We're building something special here, together. Let's make this a place we're all proud of." As he stepped into the evening air, Henry felt a surge of purpose. He had taken the first step, but the journey was just beginning. He was determined to transform Elite Motors into a beacon of respect and integrity, proving that anyone, regardless of age, race, or background, could make a difference. Over the next few weeks, Henry threw himself into the transformation. He started by hiring a new customer service team, selecting individuals who shared his passion for helping others. He introduced mandatory diversity training, ensuring the staff understood the importance of treating every customer equally. Mornings found him at the showroom early, observing interactions and offering guidance. He didn't micromanage. Instead, he led by example, greeting customers with warmth and ensuring no one felt ignored. One morning, Henry noticed a young couple browsing hesitantly. They seemed intimidated by the gleaming cars and the showroom's upscale atmosphere. Rather than letting a salesperson pressure them, Henry approached. "Good morning," he said with a smile. "I'm Henry. Just looking around." The woman, Sarah, nodded shyly. "We're not sure what we want yet. Just exploring." "No rush," Henry replied. "Take your time. If you have questions, we're here to help. No pressure." The couple relaxed, their uncertainty giving way to curiosity. They wandered the showroom, occasionally glancing at Henry, who kept a respectful distance. When they left, they thanked him warmly. "We'll be back," Sarah's husband, Mark, said. "Thanks for making us feel welcome." That moment encapsulated Henry's vision. It wasn't about closing a sale on the spot. It was about building trust. Over time, the showroom's atmosphere began to shift. Staff members grew more confident, engaging customers with genuine interest rather than aggressive tactics. Customers, in turn, responded to the warmth, returning with friends and family. Word of the changes spread, and soon, a local news outlet reached out. A reporter, intrigued by stories of exceptional customer service, requested an interview. Henry agreed, seeing it as a chance to share his message. When the reporter arrived, he welcomed her into his office, a modest space overlooking the showroom floor. "Why make these changes?" the reporter asked, her notebook ready. Henry leaned back, thoughtful. "Business isn't just about profit, it's about people. When I walked into this showroom as a customer, I was dismissed because of my age and appearance. I knew I could do better, not just for myself, but for everyone who walks through those doors." He spoke passionately about his philosophy: respect every person, listen to their needs, and create an environment where everyone feels valued. The reporter was captivated, jotting down notes furiously. The story aired a few days later, painting Elite Motors as a model of customer-focused business. The response was overwhelming. Customers flocked to the showroom, drawn by its reputation for fairness and warmth. As months passed, Elite Motors thrived. Sales increased, but more importantly, the showroom became a community hub. Families, young professionals, and retirees alike felt at home. Henry watched with pride as his staff embraced their roles, not just as salespeople, but as ambassadors of respect. One afternoon, Henry overheard a customer praising the showroom to a friend. "This place is different," the customer said. "They treat you like family, not just a paycheck." Henry's heart swelled. This was the legacy he had dreamed of, a business that stood for something greater than itself. As he stood in the showroom, watching customers and staff interact, Henry reflected on his journey. From a small-town kid facing prejudice to a successful businessman, he had never let obstacles define him. Now, at 75, he had transformed a dismissive dealership into a beacon of change. The road ahead would bring new challenges, but Henry was ready. He had built more than a business. He had built a legacy of respect, integrity, and hope.